we're going to start talking about working with sets and subsets. So what this means is like if you have a set of numbers, right? So if you have an answer bank full of numbers that sometimes I give you when we're doing an assignment, that's a set of numbers that you get to choose from that are the answers. Okay, and so there's lots of different sets. For example, like there's a set of numbers on your keypad when you go to dial, right? There's only the numbers 0 through 9. That's a set of numbers. Okay, so the first thing we're going to learn about in today's lesson is how to write sets in two formats. So there's two formats. The first one is called roster form. This is the easier one. This one, literally, you just list the elements that are in the set and you put them in brackets. So this is a bracket right here, and you're going to just list those elements in there. So if your answer choices are 1, 2, and 3, that's roster form, 1, 2, or 3. And I'll show you that those get a little more complicated. The one that is a lot harder for students to understand is called set builder notation, okay? And the way that is, it's going to describe the properties of the elements that are included in the set, all right? And the example looks like this, and so this is where it gets crazy. You start with a bracket, and then you list a variable that you're going to use. So usually it's x, but it can really be anything. And then you put a slash, and then you talk about the variable in some way. But there's a general format for this, okay, which I listed here. And I did the general because general just means that it's like this a lot, but it's not always. So here's a general format. You're going to say like x, and then you're going to say x is a, and you'll pick a subset. So is it a natural number, a whole number, an integer, a rational number, or a real number? And so those are all the sets we talked about earlier in the year. Remember, natural numbers are the counting numbers. If I ask a 4-year-old to count to 10, what do they start with? 1, right? So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, going on up. Whole numbers, the only difference is now it includes what? 0. Integers now includes the negative, right? And then the rational numbers, all the fractions, right? And then the real numbers are any of the numbers that, including the fractions, they can be the whole set, right? And then there's irrational, which we aren't going to be using in this lesson. All right, and then the last thing you do is usually you give an inequality or a description, okay? Let me show you an example. So it says, how do you write T is the set of natural numbers that are less than 6 in roster form and in set builder notation? Okay, so this is how we do this. Roster form is the easy one. You start with whatever it tells you. So T is the name of our set. And we would say equals then. And roster form, literally all you do is you make a bracket. Easy way to remember how to make a bracket is make a C, a sideways V, and then another C. That's a bracket. And then we're going to list the numbers that could be in there. So the set of natural numbers that are less than 6. What's the first natural number less than 6? The first one less than 6. 5, right? What's the next natural number less than 6? 3, 2, 1. Is 0 included? Because it's not a natural number, right? And then you end the bracket. So now you do a backward C, sideways V, backward C. That's the bracket. Correct. Or you go up. Sometimes, so on listed 1 as the first one, so you could have done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So roster form is the easy way because you just list them. Now, here's the harder one, right? Set builder notation is going to take this format. So you're going to still start with whatever the set is called. So it's called T. So we're going to put T. Oh, maybe I should turn the lamp on. Oop, there we go. Sorry. T equals, and we're still going to use our bracket. call a variable, a lot of times we'll just use x. So our variable we're going to say is x. And then we're going to separate that, and we're going to list what it is. And so we're going to say x. And now I'm going to show you a symbol instead of using the words. You take either one. You can say is a blank, or you can say is an element, and you make this weird looking E. It's like a capital E, only it's like curved. This means X is an element of what set did it say? The natural numbers, right? The natural numbers. I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of space, so I'm doing it like this. And then you put a comma. And then the last thing you list is either an inequality or a description. In this case, it makes sense to us to do an inequality, right? Because it says that they are less than 6. So we would say such that x is less than 6. And okay. And it's going, don't panic. It's going to take practice. You probably are not going to get this on the first try or the second try or the third try. It's going to take us like the 10th try. And then we're still going to talk about it again. Okay? Let's do this we're going to do example 2 as well today. And then that's it for our notes. Okay? So the other part of this is in set builder notation, how do you write the solutions of negative 5x plus 7 is less than or equal to 17? Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to solve it first, okay? And so in order to solve it, this is what we were doing before this. We're going to set this up, negative 5x plus 7 is less than or equal to 17, and we're going to solve it like we learned before. So our first move would be to do what? Yes, minus 7. Let's go. Minus 7 here. Minus 7 here. So now we have negative 5x is less than or equal to 10. Divide by negative 5. X is not equal to. X is greater than or equal to, we got to flip it, negative 2. Okay, now in set builder notation, so A is the inequality, right? But it says we want to write it in set builder notation. So looking at our example, how does it have to start? With a variable and a bracket. So it's either going to be B or D. Now, it did not list in this one like the type of number, did it? But if it were, it would be a real number, okay? But which inequality, which set builder is right? X is greater than or, yeah, this is the right answer. Okay? Now, to be technically correct, I just want to say that usually they list what it is. So it really would look like this, x, and then if it's not listed, you assume it's part of the real numbers. You would say x is an element of the real numbers. And then you would do a comma, and sorry, I ran out of space, but you would then list the inequality, x is greater than or equal to negative 2, and end the bracket. What is what? This is just separating. It's saying my variable is x, and it's separating it from what type of number we're talking about. Okay? So this is roster. And just so you know then, or I'm sorry, not roster. Shoot. Set builder. Sorry, I got too excited. So this is set builder. If you were to do this in roster, which is what I was going to show you, okay, we have an inequality. Remember, roster is to list them out. So roster format, you would say like this. You would start with a bracket. less than or equal to -2, right? So -2, right? Comma, because it's or equal to, or I'm sorry, it's got to be greater than or equal to -2 is what we're saying. What's the first number that's greater than -1? But here's the thing, we might have to say -1.9, right? It's a real number, right? It's not saying it's integers. Does that make sense? What's the next one? -1.8. And then, is it possible to list all of the numbers that are greater than -2? All of them? So what you're going to do in that case, if it's roster, is you put ... meaning this keeps on going in this direction forever, right? Right, exactly. Okay, so it's going to take us some time. This is the notes, all right? No panic on this. This is the notes. All right, so for notes, this is it. I'm going to end the video.